I hope you have unlimited text messaging by Miss Carr. Chapter 79. In-person conversation number 1. Maybe waiting won't be so bad. Friday, please don't actually send that message to Dr. Simmons, Steve said as he lay down next to Tony as he was trying to convince Dr. Simmons that he could totally do something such as Steve without endangering his health. Obviously, he wasn't being successful, which was a shame because Steve only bothered to put on boxer shorts after getting out of the shower. Bless him. I wasn't planning to actually send that, Steve responded with a glare. I really wasn't going to. Friday just did that by accident. He was totally lying. Steve knew he was totally lying, which is why his stock pad was confiscated. Are you done arguing with medical yet? You've been doing that for over 24 hours. I am not arguing, Tony told his boyfriend. I heard your conversation with Dr. Fitz while I was getting my suit fitted this morning, Steve responded. I was just aggressively, as well as the text messages to Dr. Suarez during lunch, Steve added. Of course he saw that. Now I'm almost happy that Yo-Yo couldn't get you into tomorrow's lunch. Okay, arguing was involved in a sense, Tony finally acknowledged. You know I'm not going to leave just because we can't have sex, Steve asked seriously. Despite our feelings, I do know that you're pretty loyal to those that you care about. And since there's no one else around that tops me now, I think we're good. He frowned at Tony's flippant response. You know that wasn't a me choosing Bucky over you because I care about him more than you situation? Thank you for lying, but it's not necessary. You've known me for less than 5 years, and you've known him since playgroup, Tony tells Steve. We didn't have playgroup back then. Steve bunches his nose up in such a cute way. He's adorable. You know what I mean. Look, I know where I stand. If a building was burning and I could only save you or Rhodey, I'm sorry, Buttercup, but I would go straight to Rhodey. Because you know I can take care of myself. And our stupidity paralyzed him. Fitz and I are working on something, but it's still in a prototype phase. It was the same thing with Bucky, Steve tells him. I was trying to help the person who I thought needed the most help. I didn't realize how much else was riding on your choices, not until we really started talking to each other. My therapist pointed that out multiple times. That was what you were doing, Tony explains. And you believe her? The good days, sometimes. But I have 2 decades of Howard making me feel like I couldn't live up to you, or at least his idea of you. I think you're aware that my self-esteem is shot to hell. Steve responds by placing an arm around Tony. Is this okay? You sleeping next to me shirtless is definitely okay. Which I wish I could remove the boxer shorts. But this beats the body pillow that Rhodey sent me to be an ass. Steve raises an eyebrow at him. Don't ask. There was a bed involved. Tony is not giving Steve the whole story on that one. I know you're upset, but this is not a terrible thing, Steve explains, holding him closer. Honestly, as much as I really want to do those things with you, I'm not sure if we really are ready for that. I'm not sure if I'm ready. We still have things we should work through. You're still scared I'm going to leave you, and you think that I'm only here because Bucky is in cryo, when the truth is I'm here because I want to be with you, Tony responded by pulling Steve down for a kiss. I wouldn't say that's what I'm thinking. Did you borrow my toothpaste? Tony asked, pulling away. He was extra minty fresh. Yes, but I did bring a toothbrush. Over the last few months, I felt like I've started to actually get to know you, and I think I know how your mind works enough to know that you think you might be the consolation prize. Maybe, Tony answered honestly, sniggling into Steve a little bit more. Super Soldier, 6 bags are awesome. Also, the sheets at this hotel are like silk. You're not. Although I do wish I realized this before. Just sleeping in the same bed as you became a luxury. But maybe we wouldn't be here otherwise, Tony said, kissing Steve again. He's trying to keep these kisses chaste, but that is difficult. Even the muscles in Steve's tongue got better. I'm worried about other things, too. Ross? Steve asked as he ran his fingers through Tony's hair. Or other supervillains. And kids who take on supervillains. He's hoping that Peter stays out of trouble, but he's concerned. Note to self, email Laura in a few minutes. Always a possibility. But you're prepared.
And then there's the fact that there's no filter right now, and I'm pretty good at saying the wrong thing at the worst possible time. I'm aware, Steve tells him. There was a transcript of the post-Afghanistan press conference in my welcome kit. Of course there was. At least before, when we were trading text messages, I could say what I wanted to tell you out loud, then look at it on screen and realize maybe if I want to avoid a fight, I should not say that. And then Friday would send it anyway, Steve added with a grin. She's getting better about that. He gives Tony another look. She really has, except with the videos. We'll talk about that when I'm somewhere with my full version of Friday, not the travel assistant. You should. For this to work, we should talk to each other. Not just online, but in person. When we have the opportunity, like now. Which is scary, as I learned by trying to reconnect with Pepper. Tony rubs a finger against Steve's beard. He is enjoying it, and isn't that sad about losing the clean-shaven Boy Scout. I thought things were getting better between the two of you? Steve asked. Yes, it gets a little less awkward each time. Steve leans over and kisses Tony on the mouth again. Things are awkward between you and me too, but at least we can do that. I'm enjoying this. Your tongue is awesome. I am too. We don't have to go too fast. In our business, you don't want to assume, but maybe we can take a moment. If things go well tomorrow, this might become an easier thing. I.e., if the world accepts Stephen Carter, then they could see each other in public and Steve would be safe. Deep down, that's all Tony really wants for his boyfriend. Of course, Tony was already making a contingency plan, or 6. Or, to go completely wrong, everybody could completely see through the facade. Tony told his boyfriend worriedly. I'm trying to think positively. I did get mistaken for Chris Evans twice today, despite my new contacts now giving me a different eye color than him. Steve joked. Because he looks more like the old you now than you do right now. They're going to start shooting the Captain America stories soon. Don't worry, you're getting a percentage of the gross profits. Tony explains. I thought they were just making a Battle of New York biography movie. Steve asked, slightly confused. Disney is now planning to do a whole cinematic Avengers universe with movies based on our real-life adventures. We are each getting separate biopics and then a New York movie, except for Natasha and Clint for some reason. Which is a shame, because Natasha's would probably be the most interesting, Steve added, and the one they would have to fictionalize the most. By the way, Disney is lobbying for you to get pardoned. Why? They will probably sell more tickets if you're not a war criminal, Tony explained, neglecting to tell Steve it was part of the movie deal the lawyers negotiated. Good point. I have some creative control, so I promise it will not end up like that travesty of the Captain America movie from 1990. Dad ended up suing them for that. With good reason. What 1990 movie? Steve asked. Somehow nobody told him about that. It's best that you never ever see it. It was worse than the radio drama. They made Red Skull Italian and raised by Nazis, and that's just the beginning. Also, he, or rather who he worked for, were responsible for Kennedy and MLK's assassinations. Tony explained, trying to remember what he knew about it from the one time he watched it years ago. Hydra being responsible for that might actually turn out to be true. At least that was what Zola told us when he was stalling for time. Steve reminds him. That part you actually told me. And he was a little bitter about that, so progress. Also, they somehow managed to have a Sharon in the film by pure randomness. I think that was why Dad sued. Sharon had Howard wrapped around her little finger when she was little. It made me think that Dad always wanted me to be a girl. Tony confessed. No more talk of Howard tonight, he said, rubbing circles on Tony's back. Gladly. Can I please have my Stark pad back? Tony asked. You're not going to email anyone else at S.H.I.E.L.D. You should rest. I was going to email Laura to check up on Spidey. That technically counts because she's now S.H.I.E.L.D., but she did it for love. So her husband could come back to her and her kids. Someday you're going to have to explain that to me. If things go well, you'll know what I mean sometime within the next 48 hours. Is that what you're worried about? Steve asked. I'm worried about Spidey. He's still pissed at me. Tony lamented. You did the right thing, he reassured. I'm still concerned. I told you about the angry email that his aunt sent me. I'm also worried that she is going to discover the truth any moment and rake me over the coals for not telling her. At the same time, Peter really needs to be the one to tell her, and he's just not ready. It doesn't help that there's 3 inhuman teenagers in SHIELD custody because their parents kicked them out for having powers. Tony rambles. That's not right. No, it's not. Especially because these powers come from something genetic passed on from the parents. Could you just kiss me again? I need a distraction.
Okay, he just needed Steve as much as possible.
Up to oblige,
Steve responded, pulling Tony down into a kiss again.
Tony really hopes the dinner goes well tomorrow, so this can be a monthly thing.